Hello and welcome everyone to the February 4th, 2021 virtual public board meeting. My name is Chelsea Powers. I am the current chair of the Brentwood-Darlington Neighborhood Association. Lots on the agenda tonight. We do have a swap to accommodate a schedule change, so just know that we're going to talk about Secretary's report, outstanding minutes before the break instead of after. Our quick reminder that all of our meetings are currently virtual and will remain so until it's safe to meet in person. You can access this slideshow and at the link that Maria will post in the chat, as well as the agenda. You can also subscribe to our newsletter or join our Facebook group to get the code and share it with your neighbors. If you're on a computer, your controls might look something like this. Some of those key buttons you're looking for is mute to stay muted when somebody else is talking, helps with the background noise, as well as accessing the chat there. If you're on a phone, you're going to have the same buttons. They might just look a little different, and these might not look exact on yours. It's just to help you know what you're looking for. If you're calling in today, you can mute by dialing *6 or raise your hand by dialing *9. We'll do some quick introductions because we have a lot of neighbors today. So be brief, and if you have a community announcement, just let me know and we'll get you in the next section. So my name is Chelsea Powers, she, her pronouns. Not my first meeting, been in the neighborhood about 5 years or so. I first heard about Bdna through a National Night Out event, and I'm going to pass it on, and I'll just read off names on my screen. If you do not want to introduce yourself, you can just say pass, or if you're quiet for a minute, we'll move on. So the next person listed on my screen is Kim Hill.
Hi, Kim DeLeo. I'm neighborhood for about 5 years, and I live on Duke and 63rd.
Welcome, Kim. Next on my screen is Kim, no last name. Okay, Kim, if you decide you want to, oh, there you are, go ahead.
I'm not sure if there were two Kims. I might have misspoke. I'm Kim DeLeo on Duke and 63rd. I apologize if I took the wrong spot.
Oh, that's all right. We have another Kim, Kim Hill. Do you want to introduce yourself?
Hi, everyone. Thank you. Was having a little Zooming issues. How fun. My name is Kim Hill. It's a lovely evening. Thursday at 7 p.m. I'm raring to go. This is not my first board meeting. I got involved with a land use question and am now working on a project with Laura Lee and Stephanie. Very much enjoying that. And I always forget the list, but I think that's probably plenty. So nice to meet everyone.
Thank you. Pam, you're next on my list.
Hi, everyone. Pam Hodge, she, her pronouns, board member for about the last 4 years. Born and raised in Brentwood-Darlington, came back about 10 years ago, and not quite sure how I heard about the neighborhood association other than I had been a member of other Portland neighborhood associations. And then when I returned to Brentwood-Darlington, actively sought out ours. So here I am.
Thank you, Pam. Welcome to the meeting. Maria, you're next on my virtual list.
Hi, my name is Maria, she, her pronouns. This is not my first meeting. I have been in the neighborhood for about 3 years, and I am part of the Land Use and Transportation Committee.
Thank you, Maria. Claudia, you're next.
Hi, I'm Claudia Groth. I'm president of the Multnomah County Master Gardener Association, and we have the demonstration garden over at the Learning Garden Lab, that group, the Green Thumb site, and we want to be involved in the Brentwood-Darlington neighborhood since our garden is there.
Welcome, Claudia. Laura Lee, you're next.
Hi, I'm Laura Lee. I have been in Brentwood-Darlington for 8 years now. I am secretary and a board member, and I also am doing some work with the Land Use and Transportation Committee.
Thank you, Laura Lee. Linda with the Master Gardener's demo.
Yes, I'm the director of the demonstration garden across the street from the Brentwood-Darlington Park. And we almost got involved in some educational activities last year, but we're looking forward to future activities with Brentwood-Darlington Neighborhood Association.
Thank you, Linda. We look forward to it. Maylin Plummer, apologies if I mispronounced your names.
No, you nailed it. That was great. Yes, my name is Maylin, pronouns she, her. I am the new executive director for Leach Botanical Garden, and I think I'm here as a guest. So I'm happy to be here today to, I think, provide a little bit of an update. I just moved here from just down the road in Charlotte, North Carolina. So I'm excited to be here to start this new journey along with the gardens and just to get to know everybody in the community.
Welcome. Stephanie Frederick, you're next. Remember to unmute.
Thank you, Chelsea. All right, I unmuted. I'm Stephanie Frederick. I'm the chair of the Land Use Committee, she, her pronouns. I've gone to 4 years worth of meetings, so this is not my first, and I've been here 4 years. I learned about the neighborhood association structure before I moved here, and as soon as I arrived, I joined Bdna. And Chelsea was here, and we were ready to go, and it was wonderful. Nice to meet you all.
And we are better for having Stephanie. Shannon, you're next. Stephanie, remember to remute.
Hey guys, shh. Sorry, it's a little chaotic over here. My name's Shannon. I am the vice chair of the neighborhood association, and I've been in the neighborhood for about 4 years now. I own Wild Grown Farm, which is an urban farm and nursery. We're off of 70th and Flavel. And I heard about the neighborhood association, through the pamphlet that Derek sends out to new homeowners, and that's about it.
Thank you, Shannon. She's got our newest neighbor there. Miles Van Reed, you're next if you'd like to introduce yourself.
Hello, my name is Miles Van Reed. I use he, him, his pronouns. I've lived in the neighborhood for about 3 years. Learned about it from Chelsea, my neighbor, because I live approximately at 60th and Ogden. That's what I got.
It's nice to see you without a mask. I never get to see you without your mask these days. Next on my list looks like Casey. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure, my name's Casey. I use she, her pronouns. This is my first meeting. I've lived in Brentwood-Darlington for 2 years, and I heard about Bdna because I was doing some research for one of my courses. I'm a student at PSU, and I wanted to learn more. Yeah, here I am.
Welcome, welcome. First meeting, woo! Ben, you're next on my list if you'd like to introduce yourself.
Thanks. Hi, I'm Ben Scandella. He, him pronouns. This is my first meeting too. I've been living in Brentwood-Darlington now for a year, and I've been sort of curious about how to get involved with the neighborhood, supporting us as a group. I'm curious to find how I can play a role.
Welcome, welcome. Lynn, you're next on my list.
Hi, my name is Lynn. She, her pronouns. It's not my first meeting. I'm the treasurer of the board. I've been the treasurer for now a couple of years. I've lived in the neighborhood since 1993, so a while. I first heard about the Bdna through a Facebook post and started coming to the meetings. And that's it.
Thank you, Lynn. Gail has introduced herself in the chat. She, her pronouns, been here since 1992, and she says she loves sidewalks. Gail is also our movies in the park coordinator when we're allowed to do that. Let's see. Stephanie, I see your hand up. We'll do finish introductions and then you can ask your question. Eli, looks like you're next on my list if you'd like to introduce yourself.
Hi, everybody. My name's Eli, he, him pronouns. This is not my first meeting. This is my second. I'm Representative Jeff Reardon's new legislative assistant. And so I just like to come in and see what folks are talking about and put faces to some names.
Welcome, welcome. We've got to coordinate with you to get him to one of our meetings. Okay, looks like I have two left. Rob's iPad. Would you like to introduce yourself? All right, and then I just have one that's labeled as iPad, if that neighbor would like to introduce themselves. All right, if you decide you'd like to introduce yourself, just let us know. I'm going to go ahead and move us along because we have a lot of neighbors, so that took a little longer, but it's worth it. We're going to jump right into community announcements. Stephanie, did you have a question real fast?
Yes, please. I wanted to invite all of you who are attending for the first or second time to put contact information into the chat, and someone from the board will follow up with you. Might be me, and get some and talk with you and find out what your interests are and tell you a bit about the Bdna. So feel free to make it so we can get in touch. Thank you so much.
And if you're not comfortable putting your chat in the main information, you can message Stephanie and she'll make sure you're contacted. All right, I'm going to go ahead and let's see if we can whip through community announcements. First, we have our Learning Gardens Lab, Multnomah Master Gardeners, and Black Futures Farms. The only announcements I have that before I pass it to the Master Gardeners is that Bdna revamped a letter we'd already written to help them apply for a grant for season extension, CSA support, and I believe some infrastructure improvements. So I have a copy of that letter if the board wants to see it, but it's a recycling of one we already did for another similar grant they applied for. And Master Gardeners, I'm going to go ahead and if you have any updates, go ahead. This is your moment.
I will pass to Linda, who is, as she said, director of the garden on site.
All right. Linda, you want to tell us what's new? Give us an update.
I will. Totally unprepared to talk, but hey, we are right now not able to access our garden, but we're hoping that very soon we'll be able to. We're in the process of working on projects that don't allow us to be physically in the garden. And we're also working with the Green Thumb collaboration peoples to coordinate our efforts in that area on that property. Claudia, did you have anything to add?
I don't at all. I don't at all.
Excellent. Thank you for the update, and I'll continue having a slide for you. So any month that you have one for us, you'll be good to go. All right, we have a guest here to just do a really brief introduction and update. We have Malin Plummer, the new executive director for Leach Botanical Garden. And while they're not directly in our neighborhood, they are our closest garden. So I'm going to turn it over to her. Go ahead.
Thank you so much, Chelsea. I was not expecting to see my face in that slide. Thank you. I promise it is me. That was a good hair day. At any rate, it's really a pleasure to be here. Thank you for this opportunity. And I really just wanted to attend to share a little bit of what's happening. I first wanted to just ask real quick, have all of you been to the gardens before? See a lot of nods. Anybody who has not been there? Excellent. Okay. Well, Casey, I saw your hand, so I'll be looking for you. Yeah, so we've had a lot of shifts and changes. Now I'm only on my week 3 of being there, but I feel like I've been there for already a couple of years. There's a lot of energy and excitement at the garden. So we're wrapping up our first phase of the master plan that was developed several years ago. It includes an aerial tree walk. That is absolutely beautiful. You can see a little bit of the image there, but it also has a new pollinator garden. So basically this is the phase 1 is a new upper garden area. So we'll have a new main entrance to enter into the gardens, in addition to still having the existing entrance down by the manor house. So with this first phase, we have some, artistic elements, a new entrance, aerial tree walk. We've been doing a lot of work in the gardens to get it really to the level that that we really represents, I think, what we're trying to do, which is show and elevate biodiversity, but in a demonstrated garden area. And multiple garden areas. And so, we really hope that people will come and visit us, but also take some of these ideas, possibilities, and hope with you to your own properties, right? So we'll also be rolling out, of course, in the coming months, other types of events and programs. The big thing to know is that the garden is open now with the existing hours. As we open up the new garden, because that construction is not 100% done yet. We are a few weeks away. We're just kind of finishing up some things. So in mid-March, we'll be posting all of this information on the website, but also sharing this through various social media. But we will be opening the new upper garden area and that entrance. There will now be a fee to come into the garden. But we have also we do have a progressive list of all the different opportunities for people to access the garden of different abilities, but also different income levels, age, and demographics. So, so that will be on March 13th. We will have for the first couple weeks free entry, just so that people can kind of come and see, but also to give us a chance to talk to people, engage with the community, and just kind of ease you into kind of the new area, kind of give us a chance to work out the kinks. We'll start charging the fee effective April 1st. If it doesn't work out well, we'll say April Fools, we're going to try this again in another day or two. So I'd like to say that it was part of my strategy, but it wasn't. It's timing. So yeah, so with that, we'll be adjusting our hours as well. So we'll be open from 10 to 5. In the programs, we'll have certain times that are pay what you can. There will be free hours. So in the afternoon or in the evening, the last hour of the day, we'll offer free entry. So just know that we'll have a lot of different flexibility when it comes to entrance into the garden. Ultimately, this is going to help us be able to expand access and help us to get areas of the garden that currently are not accessible to be accessible at another time, and with the phase 2. What else can I tell you? There's lots of information, I feel like, but I also feel like I just want to address, oh, hey, this came up last night in the Pleasant Valley Neighborhood Association. Our pedestrian bridge was swept half a mile downriver and is now lodged in, I think, somebody's backyard. So in the creek. So yes, we are out of pedestrian bridge. However, we will have access to the south side where the cottage is, which I know is a favorite area. And certainly is one of my favorite areas. So there is an alternate access to it. So we'll either have signs or a docent or somebody there to be able to guide you and point you in the right direction. But that area will be available, just not through the pedestrian bridge. I think that those are the main points. What are your questions?
Do we have any questions here for Malin? I think everybody.
On a personal note, Malin, as somebody who's had weddings and birthdays in the cottage, will we still be having that, or will that not be there?
That's a great question. So for this year, obviously, it's been a little bit different and challenging from last year and this year with COVID. But what we've run into is that, you know, certain weddings and events that were canceled last year, we've had to shift over to this year. So we still plan on having them. We do still plan on having events. I can't tell you exactly what we will have for later in this year and next year, but this is part of our new strategic planning that we are actually getting ready to engage in, so that we can look ahead to the next chapter and really look at all the different events and programs and educational opportunities and find ways to actually make them better, improve them, and you know, move forward, but also take in feedback from everyone, and definitely from all of our constituents and our neighbors. I think the most important thing is that we become, you know, financially sustainable, so that we can continue to expand our events and our offerings, diversify them, and really be essential to the community, especially into the East Portland area. We want to be very much an essential part of the community and the overall development of it and its growth. We don't want to be left behind by it. We want to be a part of it. So it's going to tie in very much to our mission, right? And how we do that. And so that's going to impact what future events and programs we have, but they're all going to come back to our mission. But there are a lot of really popular programs out there, and I don't see them going anywhere. If anything, you know, we're trying to actually get more resources in so we can do more.
Excellent. We are a little behind schedule, so we can take one more question, and then any other questions you can get to Malin there in the chat, or reach out to our resident liaison, Mary Davis, and I can also get contact information. So any other questions?
And I'll put my email address in the chat, so feel free to contact me.
Awesome.
Thank you so
All right.
much.
Thank you so much for coming, Malin. I'm going to go ahead and move us on. Continuing with our community announcements, we have just a quick thing about food. If you have a child under 18, you can access nutrition 3 days a week at our 3 neighborhood schools. Just note that they have changed the times from 3 to 4:30. They're no longer 3 to 5. All right, and Maria will put the link in the chat there. Other food resources, we have the Monday Food Pantry at Woodmere, Tuesday at Lane from Latino Network, Wednesdays, the unofficial pop-up in 2 locations, 60th and 78th at the corner of Ogden, and the Woodstock Food Pantry, our neighbors in Woodstock there, go on Fridays and Saturdays. A quick announcement from, let's see, my slide did not change here, but hopefully yours did. There it is. A quick announcement from Southeast Uplift. There is still time to sign up for the free renters' rights webinar that is happening tomorrow. You can get the URL there in the chat from Maria. It's hosted by Legal Aid Services of Oregon and the Community Alliance of Tenants. And it's supposed to be about eviction moratoria and access laws. Oh, one more community announcement. And if this will refresh for me, I may have a new slide. Shannon, your community announcement is the one that's coming up. I think I made you a slide soon enough. So go ahead and start. Shannon, are you there?
Yeah, sorry, I wasn't sure if you said me. Sorry.
Yes, go ahead. It's your turn.
Wow, Chelsea, you had that even before I
knew
I
it
was
after you asked me. I can ask sometimes.
So fast. So quick update about the Pacific Northwest CSA Coalition. So for those who don't know what CSA stands for, it means Community Supported Agriculture. and they're programs that farmers offer around the area. Basically, they're all structured differently, but the gist is that you purchase directly from a farmer, and it's like a season-long commitment. So the Pacific Northwest CSA Coalition includes about 50 farmers, 50 or 60-ish farmers at this point in the Portland area. And this year they're doing their annual Share Fair event virtually. So I am gonna link to it in the chat, but there's information there about the event itself, and they're gonna do cooking demonstrations and get an opportunity to chat with farmers. And it's all about connecting you to the programs that work best for you, and then you can sign up with a farmer. So it's a really great way to connect locally with the people that are growing our food. And Black Futures Farm is actually a member of our coalition too, so they'll be there speaking. So another connection to the neighborhood.
Excellent. Thank you, Shannon. All right. So we are going to go ahead and move on. We're a little off schedule. I hope everybody will bear with me. But this was a request of talking about some community safety issues that have been coming up. Oh, before I move on, I saw in the chat, Laura Lee mentioned the free food on Flavel between Southeast 60th and 62nd. It's a neighbor named Winnie. Definitely keep an eye. She often has things out in her little shelter. And let's see. One more community announcement. Eli says, Rep. Reardon and Senator Jama are hosting a virtual town hall on Saturday, February 20th from 11 to noon, and the information link is there in the chat. Okay, so we've been getting a lot of contacts from neighbors and seeing a lot of information on the Facebook groups and things like that about kind of 3 issues: illegal dumping and trash, abandoned autos, especially those getting set on fire, which is more than one now, and aggressive off-leash dogs, especially in Brentwood Park, outside of the dog park area. So before we jump into that discussion, I've got a slide for each of these things with the resources that are available through the city, through Metro, through the county, and then we can kind of talk through each one and see if there's something that Bdna can do to address it, or if it's more of a we can just supply information situation. Does that sound acceptable to everybody? All right. So the first issue is illegal dumping. And so if you see an illegal dump, somebody throws a couch on the side of the road, whatever, you can call Metro or report it there with their website, and they will come out and get it on whatever their timeline happens to be. The other thing is there is a lot of interest in the neighborhood, especially there's a poll going in one of the Facebook groups about what neighbors want to do, and a neighborhood cleanup like a trash pickup is at the top of the list. The last I looked, it had like 72 votes, I want to say. So if we want to do something like that, that doesn't cost the Bdna a bunch of stuff and has a lot more organization built into it, we could decide to host a solve cleanup. And that's, we did that a few years ago with Paint the Town Green, where they supply the trash bags and the gloves and the pickup thingies, and then you do a designated area, and then they drive around and pick up all the trash and take it away. I've led one of those before. They're not hard to lead. There's a lot of neighborhood interest. So if litter cleanup is something that we would like to do, we could plan one of those. And then I also included the other things that they are part of for kind of future food for thought, which is invasive plant removal, native tree and shrub planting, which I thought might be of interest to the land use committee, and maintenance and monitoring, which I believe is of trash areas that get a lot of trash. So I'll stop talking for a moment and see if anybody wants to have any discussion on this, or if you have ideas, go ahead. And you can just pop up, maybe say your name so we know who's talking. Any thoughts on this?
I got
Shannon?
something real quick.
Go
So
ahead.
Chelsea, in terms of the solve, if we were to go that route to do it and have it more structured, how long, I imagine that we're not the only neighborhood dealing with this kind of stuff right now in the city. And I'm wondering how long of a wait time is there to implement this versus us organizing? Like, would it be quicker for us to just organize it versus going through the structure of Solve?
The problem with organizing it ourselves is we have to supply all of the bags and gloves and pickup things and get rid of all the trash somehow. With Solve, they also have a waiver, so like it's through their insurance, and they're taking care of all the other stuff. They also have, I believe they also do sharps containers. I'm trying to remember what all there was. It was really well run, and it wasn't hard to do. We just had to get on their schedule. So I think that it would simply depend on schedule, but otherwise it was really easy to set up. But if we want to do it ourselves, we'll have to make sure that we have supplies and then a way to get rid of it and pay for it.
Right.
I see a comment in the
And
chat
do they do,
from, oh, go ahead.
sorry. And do they do like what's the scaling of it? Like, do we need to be like specifically we're cleaning up around Brentwood Park, or could it be like more broad, like the whole neighborhood boundaries? Like,
You give them certain areas, like you decide on an area you're going to clean. So like around Brentwood Park and maybe a couple blocks in either direction, so that the truck knows where to go to get the trash bags. And then there's like
Gotcha.
designated places to leave them along the route.
Okay.
So I see a comment in the chat from Ben that says he thinks an occasional cleanup sounds great. Is there a BDNA position on adopting blocks? And that's the link I forgot here. There's a new link of adoptoneblock.org, and that's a program where you sign up and you get, Shannon, correct me if I'm wrong, you get a bucket and some grabbers and some other supplies to clean up. And then do you dump your own trash? I forget.
The way I just signed up to it, and I'm starting to get my supplies coming in. And the way I understand it is you dump it yourself. Like you pick up whatever and you put it in your trash, or you add an extra bag or whatever it is. I've not been coordinated. I didn't hear anything like somebody was gonna get it for us. It was more put it in your own bin.
It says on
But
their
they do provide the grabber and the sharps container and a bucket and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, it looks like they also do gloves and trash bags, but you dispose of it yourself. So that link for adoptoneblock.org is in the chat. And thanks, Ben, for linking that. So that's another way neighbors can clean up. BDNA, do we want to look into doing a Solve cleanup? We could, I can get details on timeline, and we could plan it by our committee meeting.
I'd be interested in helping with that. I'd help organize. This is
Awesome.
Ben.
Hey, Ben. All right. If there's no opposition to that, let's do a Solve cleanup. I can take lead on that since I'm already registered as a leader. So Ben, if
And I'm
you send
interested,
me your
I'm
info.
interested to help you, Chelsea.
Awesome. Ben, if you send me your info, I'll make sure you're included on that planning. And anybody else who'd like to be part of that. All right, let's keep going. The next community issue was hazardous junk or abandoned vehicles. And so there was one set on fire next to the community center. And then I learned from Miles, I think it was you who might have told me that there was one set on fire down by the community by Green Thumb as well, if I remember correctly.
This is Lynn. There was one, yeah, right in front of the LGL parking lot that was set on fire, yeah.
So, all right, so the to report abandoned autos or hazardous junk vehicles, you can call the number or visit their website. I will tell you they are 6 weeks out usually, and they don't seem upset by that in any way. The problem we've really been having is that they're reported and then they're only removed once they've become a hazard by fire. With the one by the community center, I've been told by neighbors, was reported multiple times, and the and it was even threatened that it would be set on fire by the owner. So I'm not sure what to do about that, but Bdna, we could think about writing a letter to our city council and asking about why this is an issue and why we keep having cars abandoned and set on fire in our neighborhood. How do we feel about a letter regarding abandoned autos? I don't see a lot of excitement. Gail asks if we can have Foster Auto Parts pick them up. I don't think we have that power, Gail. I think that it is totally a city structure now, and the only way to get them removed is through them. Well, I will, we will think about this, bring it up for discussion at our committee meeting. Maybe we'll have some more ideas by then, but we'll go ahead and move to the next community safety issue that's been happening. And that is aggressive off-leash dogs in Brentwood Park. I've seen multiple reports from neighbors about them being out with their leash dog and being attacked by or having an encounter with unleashed dogs. And we actually had this same thing happen with our leash dog being attacked by an unleashed dog. So you can call the Portland Park Rangers if you want to report something. And if it's an emergency, you can contact the Multnomah County Animal Services. Bdna, I would like to suggest an action item though. Gail says Brentwood Park is not an off-leash park except for the fenced area, and that is true, but there is one tiny, terrible sign that indicates this, and it's waist high in the middle of the park, kind of over by the playground and not anywhere prominent. So a couple of action items we could do is we could lobby for some better signs, maybe in more than one language. And I'd also like to propose lobbying for a separator in the dog park for a small versus large area, because the problem that I encounter and that I see and talk to a lot of neighbors encountering is the dog park is filled with big dogs. And so all the little dogs are outside of the dog park on leashes, which then makes them targets for any off-leash dogs, which is what our encounter has been. Laura Lee, you have your hand up. Go ahead.
When I worked for Parks and Rec, I seem to remember there being a fee. Do you know if there's a fee if somebody has their dog off leash? That's my first question. And if there is a fee, maybe on the signs we can, inform people that there is a fee if they're caught. The second thing is our park rangers are the most amazing people ever. They are so busy. And so calling the park rangers when you see dogs off leash, I can almost guarantee you that they're not going to get there to write a ticket or to talk to the people about their dog off leash. So I think when at Montevilla Community Center, where I worked in that park, we were we talked to a lot of people about the fee, and people were more afraid of, getting caught and saying that they're and having to pay. So I'd like to look that up. Yeah, I can't remember how much it is either, Gail. I'll have to figure that out, but I do believe there is one.
Okay, so Gail thinks there is one as well, but then that loops back to the problem of if the park rangers are so busy, how would they enforce it? And if people know it's not enforced, will they care?
We used to we used to tell people that the park rangers walk around every day at various hours, and they actually do. They used to. I think that they probably cut back on staff though. But it is true. Park rangers are supposed to walk around and give tickets to off-leash dogs. And so that's what whenever we would see one in the park, we would approach the owners and say, there is a fee. Park rangers walk around. We just wanted you to know that, just to try to, I don't know how well it worked, but.
All right, that's a good idea. And Kim, you have your hand up. Go ahead, Kim Hill.
I was previously a dog owner, and one thing that I have to say about the Brentwood Dog Park is that it's actually a pretty small dog park in relation to other parts. So dividing it into a large and small would be really challenging, partly because it is a lake during the rainy season. So that's about 6 months out of the year. And that is one of the issues, is that it really needs some water mitigation. It really doesn't have adequate drainage for how many dogs use it, and I think that's part of the issue of why so many folks are off leash in the rest of the park. So I understand aggressive dogs are an issue and it's concerning, but I think that most dog owners are open to uh, to being talked to, and we'll move along and be gracious, and I understand that there are some that aren't, but I think part of it is that it's a maintenance issue, because it's a mucky, gross, wet mess, and it's hard to be in there during the rainy season. That's my 2 cents.
Thank you, Ken Hill. Just so you know where the biggest lake is, there is actually a water pipe there. So I don't know what they could do there, but we have asked for them to add water in the park of some kind since we found out about that pipe there. Laura Lee, your hand's up again. Go ahead.
Is there a way that we could designate hours for the park, like maybe before 8 a.m. or before 7 a.m., that the parts of the park can be off leash, and maybe after 7 p.m.? I mean, it's just an idea. I don't even know if that's legal or not, but maybe have designated hours where it's not kids going to school. And I don't know, maybe Portland doesn't let us do that or not. Oh, does Woodstock Park do that?
Woodstock Park has a designated off-leash area, but not the whole park. So their dog park is an unfenced area.
I see.
And to Gail's question about sawdust and bark chips, they did do bark chips last year. They don't tend to dump them unless we are willing to secure volunteers to spread them. So, which they didn't tell us until like last year. And it took me 3 or 4 tries to get through to somebody who knew about that. Let's see, looks like Ben, you have your hand up. Go ahead.
Yeah, just building on the earlier suggestion, maybe yours, of splitting the park in half. Given the relatively small size of it, is there an option to append a small dog area, like onto the north side of it or something, expand into the lawn or something?
The north side is immediately part of the soccer field, I believe, and Portland is very possessive about their soccer fields. These are all good ideas, though. Let's see if I missed anybody. Let's see, Gail says a second park would be better. All right, so why don't, Bdna, let's get ourselves an action item from here. Why don't we take all of these ideas and draft up a letter maybe to Parks and Rec saying, here are the problems we're having around off-leash dogs in the park. Here are some suggestions and things we would be willing to do to help with it, and go from there. Does that work for everybody? I see nodding. See, great. Yes in the chat. All right. I will put that together since I brought up this topic, and I will have that ready by all committees. Okay. The last thing is Neighbors Together. I wanted to make sure and bring this up. It replaces the community watch or neighborhood watch program that used to run through the city. Now they have this program through Office of Community and Civic Life, and you can access the different information and trainings that we could host there. So if there's one you're interested in, like one of their big ones is community safety through environmental design, I believe it's called. And that's making your areas safe just simply by doing things like lighting and fences and things like that. You can also reach out directly to our community safety team. So if you're having an issue and you're not able to get through to somebody at the city, or you're not sure who to talk to, you can email or call one of those three folks, and hopefully they'll get back to you. A neighbor who was having some issues with some things related to community safety was able to get help from one of them recently. So hopefully that continues to still work. Oh, and Shannon, did I see your hand up? Did you have anything that you wanted to add? No? Okay. All right. I know we are way behind schedule, but we're gonna keep going because we have an awesome tree project update from our Land Use and Transportation Committee, and I'm gonna turn that over to them.
All right, Kim, would you like to describe what you're working on? And then Laura Lee.
I certainly would. So Laura Lee, Stephanie, and I met with Jim Gersbach of Trees for Life Oregon via Zoom a few weekends ago. And he shared with us about a project called Soak It Week and a little background on what that is. Portland does a really good job of planting young trees. However, large trees in their early to middle years need our help. And this is because older, large diameter trees have been shown to store disproportionately massive amounts of carbon compared to smaller trees. And this highlights their importance in mitigating climate change. And this is according to a new study that was conducted recently in the Pacific Northwest. Oregon has been getting increasingly dry summers, and this has had an environmental impact on trees 2 years and beyond. Most people think, oh, well, the rain takes care of my trees. And this can result in tree mortality from 3 to 5 years old and stress and stunt growth in older trees. Watering during the summertime can increase the overall survival rates of younger and older trees. So the target are trees that are 3 to 10 years old. And this depends, of course, on drought conditions and temperature. And how much water. This would be approximately 15 to 20 gallons to slowly soak in. And this is where the Soak It Week initiative comes in. The goal is to provide a way to precisely measure approximately 20 gallons. So that would be 4 buckets. The buckets are provided from Trees for Life. They write a grant with the city of Portland, and they would do they would write Brentwood-Darlington Neighborhood Association into their grant. The buckets themselves have holes drilled in the sides, and this allows for slow soaking of the ground, which is best for tree roots. And there's a label that's on the bucket that provides instruction. One item that we identified we wanted to do in addition to this was to place a flyer in the bucket with instructions in multiple languages. So identify the most used languages aside from English in Brentwood-Darlington, and create a flyer that's part of that, and translation services would be written into the grant. Distribution of the buckets would begin in May. They would be in parks, potentially in parks, schools, churches, also including one-on-one distribution. Of course, we're, with masks and socially distance. And we have a goal to connect well with our communities of color and to distribute approximately 100 to 150 buckets total. So that's me for my little presentation. If there are any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
And this is Pam. I have a question just for clarification. You said that the buckets would be given to park schools and churches, but is the expectation that they would be distributed out to residents who might have trees 3 to 10 years of age for individual private use?
Correct.
Okay,
So residents, homeowners, renters, etc.
great.
And so it would be a one bucket or 2 buckets per person, and it would they would be distributed from these sites with instructions.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Chelsea.
That's great. Kim, was there a portion from Laura Lee?
Definitely not as well organized as Kim's was. Thank you, Kim. I was no, that's great because Soak It Week's going to be fantastic, and I think that we also talked about if we can't find places where we can distribute the buckets, we can also perhaps. Is that what you were going to say, Stephanie? Perhaps we.
Yeah, I can speak to that in a moment.
Oh, okay. So I'll go ahead and talk about. We're also working on a flyer that we're going to talk about with. We're still trying to get the flyer together, but we want to distribute it to Brentwood-Darlington about Portland Tree Code and the amendments that happened over the past year. We're still. I'm going to have a meeting with somebody this weekend to help me identify. What we found out by reading the tree code is it's very complicated, and it's actually quite difficult to save trees, especially if developers have already started applying for zoning rights and building permits and everything. So it was a little bit depressing that it's a difficult process that we need to get ahead of the process before we thought. So we're working on trying to simplify what the tree code is and what neighbors can do if they see a tree and they see somebody about to cut a tree down and they say, oh my gosh, is that so? That's in the works, and I wish I had more information about that, but I will after this weekend. And the last thing I wanted to talk about very quickly is heritage trees is another area that we are researching. Portland has like 300 heritage trees that were nominated by community members and approved by city council. And once a heritage tree is approved, it gets a plaque, and basically nothing can be done to that tree without permission from the city at that point, which is fantastic. So builders can't touch it. The downside is the property owners also can't do anything with it either. Even if they want to trim that tree, they need permission. So heritage tree kind of preserves our beautiful, wonderfully old, unique trees in Portland. What we did find out is Brentwood-Darlington has one heritage tree that was nominated in 1997. So we are way behind. I think Woodstock has maybe about 25. So we're going to start getting some information out to the community to get the applications, a very simple application. They're due by May 1st. It takes about 1.5 years to get a tree actually approved by city council. And we hear that they're actually backlogged on that right now, but that's another project that we're working on, and we'll have more information for you about that soon.
Excellent. Stephanie, you wanted to add to that, correct?
Yes, please. And thank you for the update on heritage trees and flyers and Soak It Week. With regard to Soak It Week, we need to tell the grant proposal writer that there is an institution in Brentwood-Darlington that's willing to take on distribution of the buckets, but we haven't had very much time to do outreach. And so I thought that asking one or more of our schools might be a good idea, because the schools represent or serve the entire population. So it would be very representative distribution point at the school. So I started by reaching out to the principal at Lane Middle School, suggesting that that they could host this distribution event, but we, Laura Lee and Kim and I, would do the work of setting it up and distributing it and giving teachers information and the PTA so that students and families could learn about it. But I haven't heard back from him yet. So if we don't hear back from him soon, and we need to submit something to the grant proposal writer, Jim Gersbach, by mid-February, so we have another week. I wanted to know if we might say that Bdna is the interested party, since we represent the whole community. And we would have our name written into the grant proposal this year. That would give us time, then we'd have a whole year till next year's Circuit Week to reach out to the schools and to individual groups within our community. Whereas this time we just we just don't have enough time. So I wanted to know if the board would approve Bdna being the recipient and distributor of the buckets this year for Circuit Week, and then we'll do lots of outreach and advertising, and won't require any work except for me, Kim, and Laura Lee. We've already said we'll do it. So there's no downside to this, and it would make for a lovely project. So would the board approve Bdna being the interested party for this grant proposal if we don't hear from Lane?
Stephanie, are you making a motion by chance?
I am making a motion. Yes.
All right.
I second the motion.
All right, Stephanie's making a motion to have Bdna as the listed party for distributing the buckets through our community partners, seconded by Pam. Any discussion? All right, board members, I will call down the roll and for voting. Pam?
Aye.
Stephanie?
Aye.
Shannon?
Aye.
Laura Lee?
Aye.
Derek?
Yes.
Lynn?
Aye.
And I see Gail's aye in the chat, and I'm also aye. Motion passes unanimously.
Oh, thank
Go
you
ahead,
so much,
Stephanie.
everyone. That makes things way easier. And I just want to say that Laura Lee and Kim are just doing a fabulous job researching trees. We need our canopy to be resilient as we go into warmer times. And I just don't have the words to say what a great job they're doing. Thank you both.
Yeah, I want to definitely do a thank you to Kim and Laura Lee. They've been amazing. And Stephanie, I have some ideas on how we can combine all that information to get it out to the neighborhood. So once the heritage tree and the rules around the developers research is done, let's talk. Okay, I'm gonna move us forward, and we're gonna do our quick board business of approving some outstanding minutes. Board members, you should have received these by your email. And Laura Lee, I'll go ahead and let you take over.
Okay, I did receive a couple of emails and some changes, and I made those changes to the November meeting minutes and also the January minutes. So the link that I sent you should be up to date, and I hope everybody has had a chance to review that.
Excellent. That was November and January, correct? Did I hear
Yeah,
you?
November 2020 and January, yeah.
All right. So would you like to make a motion to approve those minutes?
Yes,
Laura Lee?
I make a motion to approve November 2020 minutes and January 2021 minutes.
All right. Do we have a second? Stephanie seconds. All right. Motion on the table to approve November 2020 and January 2020 minutes as corrected through email. Any discussion? All right, I'll run through our list one more time. Thank you, neighbors, for hanging in through our administration stuff here. Stephanie?
Yes.
Aye. Okay. Laura Lee,
Aye.
Pam,
I need to abstain since I wasn't present at those meetings.
okay. Shannon,
Aye.
Derek,
Aye.
Lynn,
Did you say me, Lynn?
yes, Lynn,
Oh, yes, aye.
and I'm also aye. Did I miss any board members? All right, minutes are approved with 6 ayes and 1 abstaining. Thank you, Laura Lee. And big wave for Laura Lee, who is our amazing secretary. We are so lucky to have her. All right, we're going to take a 5-minute break. When we come back, we're going to talk action streams. We're going to talk new brochures, all sorts of stuff. We will be back. Let's actually make it a 4-minute break. We'll be back at 8:05. And so refill your water. I'll see you then. All right, welcome back. We have a little bit of a shift to the agenda, but we're going to go ahead with the treasurer's report next so we know what we have to spend for our upcoming projects and proposals. So Lynn, go ahead.
Okay, so this month, there's really not a lot going on, just one transaction for mailing supplies. So basically, we end up at the end of the month with $8,578.71. So if there's no questions, we can also move on to the other 2 things that we have, the communication funds proposal and then the fiscal sponsorship proposal that needs to be approved by the board.
All right, any questions for Lynn before we move on to those? Lynn, just so you know, if you're keeping records, we've distributed all of the grocery outlet gift cards now. So if the board wants to think about maybe doing some more for this year, those were really popular and we were distributing those through the food pantry on Wednesdays. So just something for board members to think about. And then I have a slide for you, Lynn, for communication funds and fiscal sponsorship.
Okay. So yes, the communications funds, it's used for advertising, community outreach, social media website, digital and printed materials, and also to upgrade the Bdna website. So that's basically the proposal that we have to give to Southeast Uplift. And then once we approve that, we submit it to Southeast Uplift. And then as we use the funds for newsletters or advertising, we get reimbursed. So this year we have $500. Last year we had 1,350, but they've kind of changed some things around. So all the Bdna, all the neighborhood associations get $500. So we just basically have to approve that we are going to use it for those things, advertising, community outreach. So I would like to motion that we approve our communications funds for the $500 to be used as proposed.
Do I have a second for that?
Sure, I'll second it.
Okay, Stephanie seconds. Quick discussion point. Lynn, are we going to include the fiscal sponsorship remaining the same as last year in this vote?
That'll be separate.
Okay,
I'll do that next.
Okay, great. Pam, I saw a discussion question. Go ahead. Pam? Oh, you're muted.
Just that I'm the liaison to Southeast Uplift. For those of you who don't know, the communication funds come from Southeast Uplift. There was quite a bit of discussion at the board meeting on Monday about the change in the communication funds and grant process. A couple of things. Number of board members have asked that this substantial budget reduction in the amount of communication funds be re-examined. The deadline for applying has been extended until March 7th. And I also personally feel that the process for applying for these funds is written in a very confusing fashion. And I just caution that my reading of this, and maybe you've already looked into it, is that even the $500 now needs to have some magic language about meeting baseline requirements set forth by Southeast Uplift. So we might want to double check the our description of what we're applying for to make sure that it meets those baseline requirements. I think, Chelsea, you mentioned that you're going to be attending a workshop on February 11th. So you might just want to re-verify that we are phrasing our request correctly so that we're not declined even for the $500.
So I think there is some confusion because even when I look at their website, communication funds is different from communications grant.
Correct.
So you're saying that even for the communications funds, there's certain language we have to use?
I have that suspicion. I may not be correct, but it's certainly confusing when you read through their voluminous explanation of how to apply for this.
Yeah, they seem to have the same like one website for funds and grant, and there's no, so I just basically went with what I've done in the past. And actually in the past, I would always get like Leah or somebody would send me an email and say, hey, here's your communication funds packet. I think I didn't get anything this year. I think it was like in a newsletter.
Well, there's been a 75% turnover in Southeast Uplift staff and the executive director is leaving. So I think there's mass confusion right now, and I would just double check everything.
Okay, so why don't we do this? Why don't we vote on it based on this language with a writer in our vote that subject to needed language changes as per Southeast Uplift, which like we know what we want to do with it. So if we need to alter the language for the grant, we can alter it in the way that still does this same basic thing. Does that work for everyone?
Thank you.
Okay, Stephanie, did you have a comment on that?
Well, I just wanted to know why the amount is so much less than it was last year.
I was not given that information. I don't know.
Well, that too was a topic of discussion on Monday, and apparently there are even additional dollars available in the sole budget that weren't allocated. And so again, it's getting pushed back from board members. This was a staff level decision, and it took a lot of Southeast Uplift board members by surprise. So I'm not guaranteeing it's going to change, but at least it will be raised again at the board's next meeting in March.
Okay, and I'm going to the grant workshop next week for the communications fund. So let's get through this vote and then we can talk about that and the fiscals and after the fiscal sponsorship. So going way back to a few minutes ago, we have a motion on the table to approve the communication fund proposal as written, subject to language changes that Southeast Uplift requires, seconded by Stephanie. We've had discussion and I'll go ahead and call through the roll. Stephanie? I see an I through your lips, even if you're muted. Lynn?
Beg your pardon. Yes. Okay.
I for me. Aye.
Pam?
Aye.
Derek?
Aye.
I see an I in the chat from Gail. I see an I in the chat from Shannon. Laura Lee had to leave the meeting. All right, so passes unanimous. Thank you. Lynn, you are approved for communications funds. I don't have a slide for fiscal sponsorship, so go ahead and do that one next.
Yeah, I don't think we really need one. Everybody pretty much got the like what I sent out. So basically for the fiscal sponsorship, Southeast Uplift, we can use their tax ID number to get donations so that people can, get donations or give donations through a nonprofit. But we have to submit to Southeast Uplift a proposal of kind of like buckets of where we want to take donations. So like a general bucket for any type of donation, we have one category for Spooktacular for donations specific to that. So we just have to label, you know, where the funds are going. And once you label where they're going, you basically, if you do get a donation, for example, to Spooktacular, when you do have expenses for that event, you then submit receipts and get reimbursed from that pile of funds. So basically that's what the process is. You just have to submit that. For each project, you kind of give an outline of what's going to happen. You have a little bit of a budget, and then you submit that. So you're not penalized if you don't use those, you know, those categories. So you just have to basically submit that.
And Lynn, the categories that we use this year are the same as last, correct? If I remember my emails correctly.
I'm sorry.
We use the
I
same
think,
categories this year, correct?
Yeah, we use the same categories. I think the question in the chat might have been, it says if Bdna is losing 850, what is no longer being funded? So I think, so the slide that we're looking at, I don't know, I think
it won't affect what's being funded. It'll affect how much we have available to fund other projects. So we will still print brochures and do websites and things like that, but the amount of money we'll be able to get reimbursed and use the funds we raise for more neighborhood projects will be reduced, if that makes sense.
Right.
So, all right, so board members, you saw the fiscal sponsorship. Lynn, are you ready to vote on this thing?
Yes, so I propose that we submit our fiscal sponsorship proposal as circulated with, you know, what you guys saw.
Okay, and any neighbors who'd like to see that, you can just let us know. It's in our public records. So we have a motion on the table to approve the fiscal sponsorship as distributed to the board. Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
Okay, Derek seconds. Motion to approve fiscal sponsorship, seconded by Derek. I'll go down the roll call. Stephanie?
Aye.
Lynn?
Aye.
Derek?
Aye.
Pam?
Aye.
Shannon?
Aye.
All right, and I am also an aye, and then Gail. Gail, do I see an aye from you? There you are. All right, motion passes unanimously. You can go ahead and submit that one, Lynn.
All right, thank you.
And to Pat's comment, or Pam's comment in the chat, there's an opportunity to submit a supplemental communications grant for the remaining $850. I'd like to propose we go for the whole 1,000, I think, that we can apply for. And that's because we are completely out of Bdna brochures. Derek has been mailing like crazy and we have run out of all of our stash. So we are working on new brochures.
Wait a minute. I think I got a few left.
Just a few. Well, we better get printing soon.
This is it.
So
Well,
board members, this is the pricing for what we paid last for our brochures, our magnets, and the little insert flyers we do. We still have some magnets, but I suspect we'll need to order those at some point this year. And we are very low on brochures, as you saw. The third sheet flyers, those are the ones we update with various things and would be a perfect opportunity for what was that? The water week, was it? Soak It week, and things like that. So I'm going to take the grant workshop next week, and I'd like to write a grant to get us more brochures printed, and also I'd like to get them translated into at least one other language. I have a neighbor who helped with the resource guide who would be willing to translate again for us at, she offered to do it for free, but I think we should pay our neighbors. So we could write a nice fee in there that's reasonable. how does that sound for everybody? Do we want to, is it all right if I write a grant for that and get it submitted?
Yes, let's get all the money we can.
Okay. We can plan to pay for it if we don't get a grant, but we'll at least do that. And that way we could do, if there's no argument, I think Spanish should be our first translated language.
Yes, I agree.
And maybe then we could look into, I know Vietnamese is becoming a more prominent language in our neighborhood. Does anyone know if the census knows if it's showing our languages yet?
That would, yeah, I think that would be a good basis for that, right? I'd be curious to know what number 3 is as far as non-native speakers in
It
the
used to
neighborhood.
be Russian, but the demographics in the neighborhood have changed quite a bit. So
So it could be what, Chinese or Vietnamese or Korean or?
at the schools, at least, I see more Vietnamese.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah. So Derek, you and I will research that since we're a brochure
Okay.
people.
There we go.
So really quick, I want to show the proposed redesign. I tried to make it a little more timeless so that we can use it all year. And there is intentionally more white space to accommodate different languages being translated into the same design. So you can see there on the back, I've adjusted it to talk about what a neighborhood association is and our meetings and an invite to come join us. And board members, I sent this around to you and have made slight changes based on the feedback I got. Neighbors, your feedback is welcome on this. You don't have to be a board member to give us feedback. Let's see, Stephanie, I see your hand up. Go ahead.
Oh, I think I've mentioned this before, but going forward, I'd like to use the term land use committee and leave out and transportation just to save some syllables. And land use committee is what it's called in our bylaws anyway. I don't know where and transportation came from. So I'm trying to prune things down because Brentwood-Darlington Neighborhood Association Land Use and Transportation Committee is like 50 syllables or something like that. And it's I think we should go in the direction of fewer syllables if possible.
Less is more.
Less is more,
It
absolutely.
makes translating easier too. And then we can have on, I'd like to work with you to get a land use tab on the website eventually, Stephanie. And then it can have under there like transportation projects, land use projects, parks projects, whatever.
Right.
So,
okay.
All right, so we'll have the land use committee and we'll shorten that. Excellent. I have that note there. Any other feedback on this before we move on?
Yeah, Chelsea, on the back of the brochure, there was an acronym that other people might not be familiar with, the TGM. Have you changed that just so?
Yes. Yep, I filled that out today.
Thank you very much.
Yep, I'm really trying to stay away from acronyms.
Coming soon.
Chelsea, I had a question.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I was wondering so as far as referencing our Zoom meeting format that may go away at the end of the year, is that still going to be on the insert or in the brochure?
So what I have on the brochure is really general. It has only the day of the meeting. You can look up the time.
Okay.
Because sometimes like our committee meetings shift around a little bit. So it says, if you can't read it there, it says public meetings, general board meeting first Thursday, land use committee meeting second Thursday, all committees meeting third Tuesday. And then it says for meeting times and location to contact us. So that way they can find out, are we virtual? Are we at the community center? Are we doing both? Are we, out in the park with a megaphone? What are we doing?
Mm-hmm.
So does that work? Being a little
more.
Yeah,
that works. And then of course on the inserts, we can,
Then we'll do Zoom inserts. Yep, for now.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah. Okay.
Awesome. Okay. The next page is the one you were asking about, Pam. And I filled it out a little bit from Stephanie's excellent newsletter, BD Outlook. So if you're not getting the land use newsletter, let Stephanie know you want it. So I know that is really small text. I tried to make it as general as possible. The things to look for in 2021 and 2022 are improvements to Arrow Heights Park, and it says 12 million from system development charges for parks, trails, and natural areas to improve Arrow Heights Park. And that's directly from the Parks and Rec project page, Pam, trying to use kind of the similar language, and then it has a link to that website. The next one says sidewalk infill along Duke and Flavel, 5.3 million for sidewalk infill on both sides of Southeast Duke Street and Southeast Flavel Street from 52nd to 82nd Avenues, plus a greenway with traffic calming, wayfinding, and improved crossings on Knapp and Ogden Streets from 52nd to 87th, connecting the 50s and 80s neighborhood greenways. Stephanie, that's modified from your reports and the project page there. Definitely open
So
to
now
look.
there's absolutely.
Oh,
Sorry.
say that again, Pam.
So there's now no mention of our $250,000 comprehensive planning grant?
Well, I wasn't sure how we wanted to word that, so I left white space for it. So
Okay.
I wasn't sure, Stephanie, how we should word the Transportation Growth Management grant here, or if we should do it on its own insert so we can have updated when the meetings are and the updates there.
So what about major planning study for land use, transportation and commercial corridor development?
Will you
Put
TGM that in the chat for me, Pam? That's fantastic.
I will.
Thank you. All right, so I'll adjust that. You can see I left kind of some margins to be able to stretch it. And then Stephanie, is there a project website yet for the TGM grant?
No, not yet.
Okay.
I'll mention, well, there one will be created, but the grant is just, the effort is just getting going right now. And no, there's no project website yet.
Okay. And then I have there at the bottom, underneath these projects, to sign up for updates on these and other land use, and I'll take out transportation projects to email BD land use. So that's a little teaser, get them into the committee. Then as requested, I did points of interest labeled on the map. And you can see those there. And then I did, instead of only focusing on our Learning Gardens lab, I did a general for the Green Thumb site that kind of has a teaser of what's there. And it says, as I know the text is really small, the Green Thumb site located on 13 acres in the heart of Brentwood-Darlington is shared by multiple groups, including Portland State University's Learning Gardens Laboratory, Black Futures Farm, Oregon State University's Master Gardeners Demonstration Garden, and Portland Public Schools Community Transition Project, as well as 2 community gardens and a community orchard. And I do have the Arrow Heights Community Garden mentioned up in the points of interest. So neighbors and board members, any additional feedback on this is welcome. And then board members, we can funnel a finalized version around to make sure we have typos. That we do not have typos. It's starting to get late. I'm losing my.
Chelsea,
Go ahead, Derek.
I'm wondering, is this worthy of a consideration to throw a grocery outlet on there and then ask them for some money?
I think that is not a point of interest that goes with the other ones, but we could do a plug for our resource guide. Somewhere on here of, check our resource guide for more things in Brentwood-Darlington. You're welcome, Claudia. We're trying to include the Master Gardeners. And yep, Gail, I've got the community garden listed there. So yeah, send me feedback, board members, and I'll get a finalized version out for approval. But I do want to, I'm going to apply for the grant, but in the meantime, we should probably get at least 1 batch of brochures printed quickly. So I'm wondering if we can approve doing 1,000 brochures printing, and then if we happen to get a grant, we can get it refunded.
I second it.
All right. Any discussion? All right, motion on the table to print 1,000 brochures at the cost provided from Oregon Business Forums on the screen, and seconded by Derek. Any further discussion? All right, I'll go through the roll call. Stephanie?
Aye.
Pam?
Aye.
Derek?
Aye.
I see aye from Shannon in the chat, aye from Gail in the chat. Lynn?
Aye.
And I'm also an aye. Did I miss any board members? All right, motion passes unanimous. We will get new brochures printed. All right, thank you, thank you. All right, the next thing, I'm sorry you have to listen to me so much tonight, are proposed action streams. These are updated based on the at our last meeting, we discussed things that neighbors are interested in seeing and different passion projects. And we put those together, discussed them at our all committees, and also sent them out for feedback to the board. This is as updated. So board members, if you can read through, but I'll read through really super fast since I know that is tiny font. So our first action stream is enable and encourage residents to engage with one another independently of the BDNA board. And Stephanie, here's where I kind of put in your change about art and things like that. Recognize and aid residents' efforts to better BD, and we can include art, cleanups, and other projects in that.
Thank you, Chelsea. Okay,
Mhm.
good.
Create a gallery for neighbors to fill with BD history, like stories, photos, and interviews. This is Laura Lee's idea, and I have some ideas of how we can tie that into the website. Create opportunities for neighbors to interact with and support basically everybody at the Green Thumb, Learning Gardens Lab, Master Gardeners, Black Futures Farm, etc. Community Orchard, and that includes volunteer opportunities, classes, and food access. In the organized category, was organize and carry out on behalf of residents. This is more of a social thing. We have host cleanup and recycling events once safe, movies in the park if it's safe by summer, and partnering with organizations to offer multicultural and or seasonally focused cooking classes. And that includes our Master Gardeners, our Learning Garden Lab, Black Futures Farm, things like that. In the advocate on behalf of residents category, which includes land use, crime, parks, air quality, transportation, schools, and services. We have invite elected officials to meetings and or for interviews, work on land use and transportation projects and grants in progress. That includes the TGM grant, the regional flexible funds, the greenways and the parks. Work with schools to support and advocate as needed, and prioritize climate change goals for like air quality and multimodal transit and tree preservation, and partner with Southeast Uplift to provide trainings, things like unconscious bias and neighbors together were suggested. Our administrative category, carry out the tasks that keep BDNA functioning, develop vision and mission statements, and update our bylaws as appropriate. And Pam kind of has the lead on the bylaws project, and we're working on that. Seek grants to engage with neighbors in additional languages and formats. That's what we were discussing with our communications funds. Update brochure and resource guide. Utilize Hazeltine Park notice board. Gail, if you have a key to that board, maybe we could get together on that. And then we have expand our web presence, social media engagement. That includes updating our website, being more active on Nextdoor and Instagram as platforms we aren't currently very active on. Our last category is to strengthen the BDNA to prepare for hard times and disasters. So those items are continue to strengthen partnerships with adjoining neighborhoods. And Pam asked, I think it was Pam that asked we put specific neighborhoods in there. So we have the ones that basically touch our edges: Woodstock, Mount Scott Arleta, Foster Powell, Lentz, and Johnson Creek Ardenwald. Then we have support and advertise for the BDNA neighborhood emergency team. That's what the NET acronym is. Support neighborhood efforts to reduce food scarcity and educate neighbors on self-sustaining skills like gardening, food preservation, things like that. So board members, if they're, I want to open this up for discussion. And once we've hammered it out, I would like to get these voted on? Any further discussion on these?
I don't have anything.
All right, so board members, I move that we approve these action streams to replace our last action streams. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, Stephanie seconds. If there's no further discussion, we'll go down the roll. We have a lot of voting this meeting. Sorry, folks. Right. All right, Stephanie.
Aye.
Pam.
Aye.
Derek.
Aye.
Lynn.
Aye.
And then I see aye in the chat from Shannon, aye from Gail, and aye from me. Passes unanimously. These are our new action streams, and they'll act as our work plan for now. All right. I think we're all sick of hearing me talk for a while, so I'm going to pass it on. I know Pam has an update, I believe, for Southeast Uplift, and is that correct?
I do.
All right. So you can be next, and then we'll go from there.
Okay, so board members, I sent out earlier this afternoon, apologies for the late notice, an action item that arose from Monday night's meeting at Southeast Uplift. Representative Rob Nose had proposed a letter be sent to Multnomah County and the city of Portland, asking for a change in policy regarding houselessness and sweeps of homeless camps, and advocating for the establishment of sanctioned camping sites. So originally, he was asking Southeast Uplift as a coalition of Southeast neighborhoods to endorse his letter. It was discussed at the Monday meeting and deferred until the March Southeast Uplift board meeting to allow time for people like myself to go back to their respective organizations and ask for additional feedback or formal vote. So if you've had a chance to read the letter, it's fairly general. And my personal take is that more needs to be fleshed out before actually signing on to this, or at least giving a Representative Nose some additional feedback. I'm certainly not an expert on houselessness in Portland. I just, see what I see on the streets and try and keep up with the news. I think some of you have been more involved than I have been. The most informative comment I thought from the discussion on Monday night was comments from the Laurelhurst representative who said in his neighborhood, he'd been monitoring this for over 20 years and it's just gotten worse and worse. And the city's de facto policy seems to be that whenever they see more than 7 tents, that they come in and do a sweep, and then the people say, well, where are we supposed to go? And they're told, we have no idea, you just need to go somewhere else. So it's just a moving target. Seems very inhumane, ineffective, unacceptable. And so I'm wondering, whether there are additional comments that we have. There's also a sentence in Representative Nose's letter: despite our best efforts, we are not going to have enough affordable housing and shelter to meet the need maybe for years, which is why he's advocated for sanctioned camping. And it just seems that when I read about all the millions of dollars that the city and Metro have allocated to build affordable housing, that there also needs to be some recognition of accountability as, how is that money being spent, or how quickly can it be spent to address the issue? And do we really want to sanction camping, or do we want to push for actual, more permanent shelter and housing for these individuals? So I'll just throw it open for your feedback so that I can take it back to the Southeast Uplift Board at their first Monday of the month meeting in March.
Does their meeting fall before or after ours in March, Pam?
Before.
Okay. I'm going to open this up for discussion. You can either just call out with your name and your discussion point, or you can raise your hand. So we all know that sweeps are detrimental. The letter in question, for neighbors who don't know, is regarding sweeps and camping in part, right, Pam? If I remember my scan through it.
Pardon, what is the question? I was reading the chat while you were talking.
That it specifically mentions how detrimental sweeps are.
Correct.
So there's also, just from talking with a neighbor who is houseless, there's issues with trash pickup not happening when it's supposed to and things like that. So it seems like, since the board only just got this letter and most of us haven't gotten to read it, why don't we circulate it and plan to discuss and vote at the committee's meeting?
Great, thank you.
Does that work,
Okay.
board members?
Yeah, I would appreciate that, because I don't know much about the issue. I can't understand why it's getting worse at such a faster rate at every moment. I've been reading articles about terrible destruction being done to our natural areas in the metro region, some of it permanent, trees uprooted, streams diverted, animals killed. So it's becoming a problem of enormous proportions. So I would like to have some time to think about it and then respond. It's hard. I can't respond right now.
And I think, I mean, just to kind of go off what you're saying, Stephanie, I think this is a huge issue outside of just the port. Like, there's not necessarily a local reason as to why we're seeing the increase. This is we're in an economic downturn. We're having huge economic issues that are forcing people that were on the line before to be houseless now. Like, I think the increase we're seeing aren't people coming from outside. These are our community members that are now on the streets because they can't houses anymore.
No, I realize that it's not only Portland. I mean, LA is even in worse shape than Portland is. Every city, I think, is dealing with this. And we have a terrible problem with drugs flooding into the country that we didn't have in the past. And that makes things a lot worse. So certain segments of the homeless population are in big trouble where drugs are concerned. We shut down lots of hospitals in California and Oregon. So we've got people who have problems, mental and emotional problems, who aren't receiving treatment. And they're overlapping with the drug use people. And then we have people who have just been thrown out of their homes because they've lost their jobs and are not in these other categories. And so it's a whole range of different people who are without a place to live. So it's very complicated and very difficult.
Stephanie, that kind of dovetails nicely into Casey in the chat has a comment that she loves Pam's point about needing to advocate for greater and more thoughtful efforts to address the root issue. So I'm going to make time at the beginning of our all committees meeting, the third Tuesday of the month at 5 p.m. to have a long discussion about this. And we can either choose to support this letter or choose to write one of our own. And I'll make that a priority at our committee's meeting. And the date on that for neighbors who want to attend is February 16th. And
can I ask a really quick question?
Yeah, go ahead, Shannon.
Sorry, Shannon. Pam, I know you just got the letter, but I guess, do you know what sanctioned camping would entail in terms of, like, what is it exactly that we would be advocating for in terms of sanctioned camping? Are we talking public parks? Like, what does that look like?
Yeah, that was part of the problem, is that Representative Nose did not have like a supplemental fact sheet on what he was proposing. He said that he simply thinks that the city and the county need to work harder on finding a solution with the details to be fleshed out. So I think he was just trying to send just a strong message that what they're doing currently is not acceptable. And I wholeheartedly agree with that. The second part about sanctioned camping, I'm not sure I could personally sign on to that until I knew what it entailed and what alternatives had been considered.
Gotcha. Thank you.
All right. Yeah, let's, I see Gail has some comments about liking porta potties and about empty lots. So bring all those comments, and we will have that letter available up to read as well. It is linked in the chat there. And February 16th, let's have a big discussion on this, because we are closing in our time, and I want to make sure land use and transportation has a minute to talk at least. Thanks, Pam. That was your updates from Southeast Uplift, correct?
Yeah, other than executive director is leaving, Leah's the new interim director. They're holding off on a search until May, when they find out whether their funding from Civic Life is more than 1 year. So in a nutshell, there's a lot going on.
Okay, well, we had time for that discussion.
So he wasn't here for longer than a year.
He's back to Spokane. He's already accepted another job.
All
There's
right.
too much for him. Okay, so is land use on?
Land use is up.
Okay. Okay, fine. Just for those who are with us for the first time, the Land Use Committee of the Neighborhood Association investigates and sometimes carries out projects connected with local development, with street safety and transportation. We're getting into climate and environment. We're also focusing on trees, and then parks, not the event side, which is in Gail's capable hands, but in park maintenance and trees and protection and so on. And we are also have been turning some time to air quality issues, because we live just up the cliff from Precision Cast Parts, and we get little gifts from them in the air, and we should be aware of what's coming up our way. So first, let me talk about the Transportation Growth Management Planning effort. And again, for those who are unfamiliar with this, the city of Portland, and specifically the Bureaus of Transportation and Planning and Sustainability, applied to the state of Oregon for a big planning grant for our area, and they got it. And we worked hard to get letters of support from local businesses and individuals, but they did the most work, and they got the grant, and then they rescued the project when the city's income began to crash. They eliminated the major consultant and diverted the funds to staff. So staff is going to be doing a lot more work than they had planned on, but we are just very grateful that the project was not allowed to die, because we stand to benefit from the planning effort, which will cover the following neighborhoods: Woodstock, Mount Scott, Arleta, Brentwood-Darlington, the southern part of Foster Powell along Foster Road, and West Lentz. So that's the entire planning area. The main focus is on Brentwood-Darlington, but the others will not be neglected because we are very connected to those others, and they need help as well. So the planners are going to focus on assessing housing and economic development needs, and they want to address the displacement risk, because as we see gentrification and more sidewalks and better paved streets and so on, the land values go up, and then we start losing some of our lower income people who tend to be ethnic minorities who have moved here from other parts of of Portland where they've been crowded out. We're kind of a landing place for people who are trying to remain in Portland, but are having a tough time. The planners will also be determining deficiencies in the active transportation, that's bicycling and walking, scootering, and the transit network. And I'm delighted that we're going to be having the services of a consultant called Jarrett Walker. He's a transit expert who's worked extensively with TriMet and other major transit agencies. So he's respected by them, and we're hoping that he'll come up with a revision of transit service in the area that we can take to TriMet, which committed to helping us with this big planning effort a couple of years ago. So this is all very exciting, and it is just now unrolling. The two project managers are working right now on making sure that everything they do takes equity and racial justice into account. But we will see them soon beginning to gather data about the area, and they will be working with UCL to develop a project advisory committee of about 20 people that will be drawn from business district associations, neighborhood associations, community-based organizations, schools, historically underserved communities, and active transportation and other advocacy groups. It will also be open to individual residents and business owners. The project managers will meet frequently with this representative committee. They also want to keep meeting with the SEAM representatives. We had an excellent meeting last week, and Marty Stockton, one of the project managers, said that she would like to meet with us every 3 months or so, so we who are representatives from the SEAM neighborhoods, which are also the TGM neighborhoods, don't need to feel that we have to be on this project advisory committee as well, which I was very relieved to hear myself. So anyway, we will be keeping you apprised of the rollout of the TGM. We will not be seeing a whole lot of action right now because the managers reversed the order of work because of the pandemic. So they're going to focus on collecting data right now with the hope that by the fall, we will be able to start having focus group meetings and be able to participate in the public outreach in a way that's kind of limited right now. So that they're just hoping that we'll all have vaccinations by then and can start getting together and talk about what's going on. And then by the end of summer they'll be collecting from us the things that are most prominent in our collective minds, problems that need to be addressed and worries about the future, visions of the future, and so on. So we will be doing outreach to our residents to start collecting ideas that should be communicated to the project managers. So that's all I'm going to say just at the moment on the TGM, but I'll provide an update at every meeting from now on. So are there any questions from the newcomers before I go on to some other things? Okay.
Just quickly, some acronyms. SEAM is Southeast in Active Motion. It's a coalition of Brentwood-Darlington, Mount Scott-Arleta, and Woodstock. Did I miss anybody?
And Foster Powell.
And Foster Powell, that's right.
Yeah, it's at the 5 neighborhoods that are covered by the TGM planning effort. Yeah.
All right.
So
any questions for Stephanie?
Okay.
All right, go ahead, Stephanie.
Okay, so let me quickly go on to I'll just bring up one other item right now. We already talked about trees, and thank you all for saying that Bdna will participate in the Soak It Week. I just wanted to bring up air quality for a moment. As promised, I finally got around to installing a purple air particulate matter sensor at my house. And I said that I would learn all about this and how it all works and so on, and then make a proposal to the neighborhood association to possibly purchase a few more. And Chelsea, you had the great idea of putting one at each of our schools. And I think that's an excellent idea because there are people there who can make sure that it stays plugged in, and they'll have a Wi-Fi there, and also can be used for educating students. So I'm hoping that we can buy at least 3 of these sensors. They're $250 a piece. I am bearing the cost of mine myself, and that's fine because I really wanted one, and now I can see it on the Purple Air map. And so every time I look at the map, you know, I feel this little thrill. So if anyone wants to go to purpleair.com and look at the Portland map, you'll see all these little circles that represent these sensors that measure fine particulate matter, nothing else, only fine particulate matter in the air, which is very damaging. It's a very critical, dangerous pollutant. And the first one in Brentwood-Darlington now is mine, but we'll have more because we'll have some at the schools. And it's on the map just right next to the words Brentwood-Darlington. So you can find it on the map and check out what the air quality is like as far as particulate matter is concerned. Now, I still have to find out how to glean historical data from a given sensor so that we can, track particulate matter over time in our neighborhood. And I don't think it's hard. I just haven't had time to do it. Also, I signed up my sensor with Reed College's effort. A chemistry professor there is helping to set up a network of sensors around Portland that she can gather data from to evaluate particulate matter air quality in Portland. So I assigned my sensor up with hers, and then if we give the 3 to the schools, they can sign up as well. So they'll be contributing to this Reed College effort too. And all you do is just give a few little bits of information about where the sensor is and take a photo of it and that sort of thing. And it's very easy to become involved, but a lot of fun and helpful, and something to, once you have a sensor, you feel very proud of it. It's not as good as having a baby, Shannon, but it's still, it's still something that is a lot of fun. So I will stop there. I will be coming back to you with a proposal to buy some more once I know all about them. But I'm 90% of the way there. And I think that'll be a fun project for our neighborhood. And I'll stop there, and I can talk about other matters at the next meeting. Also, the land use meeting will occur next Thursday. We're moving it up to 5 o'clock. That seems like a nice time for people to meet. And I'll be sending out notice, and then Chelsea, you can post information about it too at the website. Thank you.
Awesome.
Any questions, anybody?
We just see in the chat, Gail said there's a rumor that Precision Castparts is closing. Pam's curious how credible that rumor is. So maybe we can investigate and see if that rumor is true or not.
How do we investigate? Do we call up Tina? Maybe.
I don't know. Let's think about how best to figure that out. But yeah, we'll put that in our things to find out. Gail heard from an employee, so we'll have to.
Okay. Thank you, Gail.
All right, we are coming up on the end of our time. Do we have anything else we want to talk about this evening? Neighbors who are still with us, thank you. Do you have any questions, comments? All right, I'm gonna go ahead and get our meeting closed here. Just a reminder, we meet every Thursday or every first Thursday of the month from 7 to 9 p.m. Right now it's online, not every Thursday, just every first Thursday. If it was every Thursday, we'd be really in trouble. Gail is, before we go, she's asking if Star Wars sounds good for movies in the park. We had a plan last year that included, I believe, some cosplayers. So
Star Wars.
Star Wars.
Star
All right.
Wars.
I think that we're probably going to end up going with our last year's plan for this year, Gail. So,
And so
okay.
I think Pam has her hand raised.
Pam? Oh, you're muted, Pam.
She's muted.
So,
Pam, you're muted.
I don't think she has a comment. Okay. All right. So
I've probably said enough for one night, but I just tried to let you know that Gail was commenting.
Oh, okay.
Since we are all clearly losing the thread of this meeting, I'm going to go ahead and end our recording and close us out. Thank you everyone for being here, and hope to see you all at Land Use Committee meeting next Thursday and all committees meeting the third Tuesday and next month for our next board meeting. Have a great night, everyone.